Are you ready?
My coach, Barbara H. Smith. Why did I hire her? Because she's the best.
Barbara H. Smith is a powerhouse. She just walks in the room and grabs your attention, and she does that in a way that just makes you feel loved and like she's paying attention to you. She cares about you, and she wants to see you be your best self.
She was able to dig inside and find the passion that was deep within me.
Barbara's energy is one of the reasons that I had to have her as my coach. I love the way she is real with people.
The reason I felt like I needed a coach was because I have some big goals and I needed to build my confidence. I knew that Barbara could help me do that.
I felt that I could trust her.
I would definitely recommend to get coaching from Barbara H. Smith if you feel like you need to level up your confidence. She would just help you feel like bold, like you can take on the world.
She has really shown me who I am. She has changed my mindset to a place that I know that I am more powerful today than I would have ever been if I had never met Barbara Smith.
Oh, here we go again. It is Thursday, and I know I say it all the time, super excited for our next guest. But before I do, let me explain a little bit about why we do the Empowering You Show. The Empowering You Show is a platform to allow people who are doing great things in the community or small business owners an opportunity to come on the show and tell about themselves and what they do so that you can understand that you need to do business with them. Today's no different. Before I introduce our next guest, let me bring to the platform my girl, the sensationally smooth, always sassy Shani Smith.
Hey now.
Hey, girl, hey.
Can you believe it's January 19th?
No, I cannot, but it is. And today, this month, we talked about criminal justice and how people can get help from the criminal justice system. Last week, we had Dr. Taneen. She was marvelous. And I know today's going to be no different. What do you think?
I know for a fact it's going to be no different. Okay. Because we're talking about fresh start. Who doesn't want to talk about that?
Yeah, especially if you've made some missteps in your life and you have found yourself behind prison walls and now you're out and you want help. You need help. You are searching for help. We got somebody today that's going to help you do that. Is that all right?
That's all right.
Our next guest is a native of Hilton Head, South Carolina. Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. At 19, he was given a life sentence with the possibility of parole after serving 20 years. He entered prison without an education, but not only did he educate himself, but he helped others get their education. With the support of his family and friends, he got his GED and enrolled in business management courses at Ashworth University. He started drawing attention, but in a good way, because he was consistently rewarded for helping others. The warden didn't hesitate to give way to him to instruct and mentor others who were incarcerated. In May 2014, on the 15th day, after serving 22 years and 5 months, hear me, 22 and 5 months, his programs are still being taught in prison. The author of 2 books, he is setting a new standard for living life of redemption. He is a member of many prestigious organizations, including Leadership Challenge, the Commission of Minority Affairs, and the Affordable Housing Task Force. He's a certified life coach, consultant, and trainer, specializing in training human resource professionals in the hiring of formerly incarcerated individuals. His organization, Path to Redemption, sponsors workshops and self-help groups to assist the formerly incarcerated with job training and basic computer skills. They help them get greater footing so that they can exit the system in fashionable ways. He is nationally known for his work with the mayor of Columbia, South Carolina, creating the first statewide ordinance called Ban the Box. The campaign gives incarcerated individuals the chance to complete applications without being discriminated for past convictions. 3 years ago, in September 2020, he was granted a full pardon from the state of South Carolina. And now he reaches back to take the necessary steps to help others to apply for the pardon. Help me bring to the show Lester Young.
And the crowd goes wild.
Oh, and the crowd goes, what? Yo, thank you for that introduction, sis. Thank you, and thanks to your audience that is listening today. Thank you all for tuning in. Let's get it.
Listen, you are a phenomenal human being.
Thank you.
We have made some missteps, all of us in our life. It landed you behind prison walls, but it didn't stop your dream. It didn't stop your gift. It didn't stop your passion. And I like to say that we only discover our passion and our purpose from our past progress.
Right.
So something happens to us and then it becomes our passion and purpose. But how many know it was always there? God just needed to take you through something, because you can't talk about something you've never been through.
Mm-hmm.
But you've been through.
Yeah, I'm with you.
It's like into the fire and came out gold. I mean, do you even think that you could be on this path to redemption had you not had to sit still?
You know, that's a question I always ask myself, and I would always say God knows best. Because I had too many external things and internal things that was distracting me from my purpose. Yeah. And unfortunately, as I said, I committed the crime that placed me in prison. But even in that situation, I still had a choice. I had a choice to take a path that was traveled by many, or I could have took the path that traveled by less. Very few people travel that path. And I chose the path that was less traveled. And that's where I was able, the purpose, everything was born and given to me in that situation. So even in prison, just like there's a lot of men and women in prison, they choose to travel a path that so many people choose to travel. And that's a path of engaging in activities that continue to distract them from who they're destined to be. You know, just do it to waste past time in prison. I got 20 years. I'm just going to involve my things that will allow me just to pass time. I was not really focused on passing time. I was about how could I use time to serve me instead of me serving time, but how would it serve me? And that's when I began rebuilding my journey.
That is so good. You know, I know we don't wake up in the morning and go, well, I think I'll just do something to go to prison today. You know, so there's some underlying something that caused you to have a behavior that might not have been conducive to being on the outside. You want to talk a little bit about that? When you were young, what happened to you?
Yeah, I really, you know, it's crazy, not crazy, but I like what you said, that most people don't wake up thinking about going to prison. And I didn't early on, but as I got into that lifestyle, I started like, yo, prison is just part of my fate. You know what I'm saying? But what really put me on this course that led me to being incarcerated at 17 years old and then at 19 is that I experienced something traumatic, and that was the loss of my beloved mother, Mary Young. She passed away when I was 16 years old. She passed away at a period where we didn't have good terms, meaning that I came home one day and was my required duty for that day or chores for that week was to wash dishes, something as simple as dishes. And I had made plans on the school bus with my friends, like, hey, we're going to go and play football. And that's it. So not thinking about what I needed to do, I just ran in the house, dropped my book bag. My mom was sitting in the living room. She's like, you need to wash these dishes so I can cook. I was like, Mom, I'll be right back. And I ran out of the house, and all I heard is, I'm going to tell your dad about you, blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? So I made it home enough time to wash the dishes before my dad came home, but not realizing that my mother was sick. My mother was dealing with an illness that she did not reveal to no one in the family. I don't even think that she understood the severity of her illness. So that night I went to bed upset with my mom's, not talking to her. She didn't say anything to me. You know, normally she said, son, I love you. But now knowing that the reason why she didn't do it because she didn't have the strength to do it. So that morning I woke up and my dad was like, "Hey, I need you to stay home with your mom." I was like, "Dad, I got some tests," which I didn't. It was a lie. But I ended up going to school that day, and my oldest sister, she stayed home with our mother until my dad came to take her to the hospital because we knew she wasn't feeling well. And 3 hours later, one of my relatives came to pick me up and said, "Hey, your dad told me to pick you up." When I got in the yard, I saw my dad and my 3 other sisters standing in the side part of our yard, and they were crying, and I didn't understand that. And when I got out of the car, my sister ran to me and said, "Mom's died."
Oh.
So that to me was, yes, that was that moment where it's like I didn't know how to process that. I didn't process grief. I didn't process that pain. Like I felt like my mom's died. She was mad at me, all of these different things. So I internalized that. And then my father at the time, he was the typical black male that was callous when it came. Like, I can't show emotions. You know, I can't show this emotion. I need to be strong for my kids. And he didn't give me at that time, watching his behavior, he didn't show me how to process that. So I went into the streets with that anger, that feel of guilt and harm, and started internalizing and turning that into anger. And that's when I started just embarking upon a path of destruction.
Wow. So from there, how did you, well, first, the message to everybody that's listening is we typically in the Black community don't process a lot of things.
Yeah, not just grief, right?
It's not just grief. And we act out, whether it's abusing our spouse, whether it's verbally abusing, whether it's physically abusing, whether it's abusing drugs or alcohol or abusing ourselves, not taking care of our bodies.
Right. Food. Yeah.
We have to begin to heal from these things in order to be productive citizens in our own lives. Forget about the society, but for ourselves.
Yeah.
Because you can do more damage to yourself than anybody else could do.
Agreed.
So how did you start to heal?
It took me, to be honest with you, it took me many years to even understand what I was going through. And like I said, at 17 years old, I found 4 months after we buried our mother, I found myself incarcerated for possession of crack cocaine with intent to distribute crack cocaine. And I tell people, I didn't hustle for money because I didn't come from poverty. I didn't come from like what we know, like, oh, the typical Black guy. I came from a 2-parent home, middle class. It was just that my father was a man that only provided to me what he knew best. And that's just to be an example of a hardworking person, provider, but he never really understood how to even process his own emotions. Wow. So at 14, at 4 months after my mother passed, I found myself in prison at 17, still not understanding what was going on. I ended up doing a 90-day prison sentence, like a youth offender sentence. And even in that, I became more criminalized, not I became more criminalized inside of that 90-day period, and walked right out of that juvenile facility and right back into that lifestyle that I just left. It's almost like I got like this slap, not a slap on the wrist, but it, from where I was living at that time, it became a credibility for me now. Like my status in the community became a little heavier. So when you said that you don't wake up and dream about going to prison when you're younger, you may never think about that. But then as you see your other homeboys going to prison, it's almost like it's part of me now. Like I know that I may not see the next birthday, so I'm going to either die, I'm going to prison. So I was waking up every morning with that thought already in my mind. As they say, as a man thinketh, so is he. Those things, the law of attraction, I started attracting all of these things that actually confirm and affirm that this is what's going to happen. And eventually I found myself at 19 years old, standing before a judge, sentenced to life for murder, killing someone over a drug dispute.
Wow.
Yeah.
Shani.
I am speechless, because at any point after this happened, you're talking about 4 months after your mom passed, did anybody think to connect that with the grief at all?
No, and that's the thing, Sonny, is that I think, like we talked about earlier, like in hindsight now, when I think about why I do the work I do, is because I believe that correctional systems and people don't really look at the root of the problem. They
No,
always
they don't.
look at the tip of the iceberg. Like I always tell people, it's not the tip that we should pay so much attention to in the iceberg. It's the underlining things that is beneath it that actually triggers a certain behavior, right? So in that process, no one never asked me that. You know what I'm saying? No one never asked me like what could have looked at the records and see that never went through a grief counseling. Me nor my sisters, we just internalized it in different ways. Mine came out in anger. My other two sisters, they turned into just shutting down. They eventually dropped out of high school. It was a lot going on. And then my dad started like drinking a little more and not like detaching from us because the grief was too heavy for him. He lost a woman he was married to for 20 years. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you know, how do we deal with that? But we just like normalize the dysfunctionality of grief, you know what I'm saying? And that turned, and for me, unfortunately, mine turned out to be the worst situation where I found myself in prison for killing someone. And then on top of that, I'm dealing with the fact now that I'm dealing with this emotional prison of me living with the grief of the death of my mother. And now the guilt I live with also that I took another human being's life over something as simple as drugs. So all of that was very heavy on me in my first few years of my incarceration.
Yeah, and even the guilt of your last interaction with your mom.
Yeah. I was going to say that he had double guilt put pressed down.
Yeah, I suppressed it. And, you know, of course, like you said, in our communities, we find inside of a prison, as I mentioned earlier, imagine a 19-year-old person walking into prison with all of that. It's a powder keg. It's about to explode. So, of course, when I walked in, I traveled that path where I found everything in that environment to numb me of what the reality was. Like, I didn't want it to couldn't wrap my mind around, you got a life sentence that you may die in prison, that you would never get out of.
Wow. Did we just lose him?
Scenario, like, how do I create this diversion from that thought process?
That was incredible. I think we lost you for just a brief moment. Okay. But what I would like for you to do is talk some more about the juvenile justice system. Last week we had Dr. Taneen Bradford on, and Shani is definitely going to give you her contact information so you can connect with her, because she is over some of the systems in the juvenile justice system, and she's doing magnificent work in that vein. The two of you have got to connect so that she can, you know, give you some resources and tell you some things that they're working at DOJ. And so there's no accident in the kingdom that you are here this week and Dr. Deneen was here last week. There's no accident. And I love the connection. You know, Shani and I are connectors. We like to connect people together so that the purpose is for the kingdom to be built. And so continuing to connect people who can help. You got this and they got that, and we connect you together, go along your merry way and go forth and conquer. So I'm loving that. Shani, I mean, the wheel turning.
Because the story is just so heartfelt. So many times people from the outside just want to judge that you're just a wayward boy, right?
No, no idea. Call it like that. He's just a thug. That's all. Right. Just don't want to do right.
All you want is gas money. You know what I mean? You just don't care. And here it is. Something like that will take out an adult who has processed this thing. You're talking about a child. You were still a child.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Still in developmental phase as far as that goes, you know? Yeah. You be 50 years old, can't process grief like that. And then, I just came across something where we were talking about you had to slow down to speed up. And I know that, obviously there was a purpose for you to be where you had to be. But how did you come to that why moment? Like, how old were you? Can you think about that, or how long you were in prison before?
Yeah. I was what, 20, 22, 23. And not long. Like I said, there's nothing like having a father that prays for you. Like in the midst, in all of the mess, my father emerged out of his own emotional prison and became this man that, like the metaphor of the phoenix, burning and grooming himself or coming back up from his own ashes. That's how my father was. When that tragedy happened with me, it made my father look at himself differently. So we both became different people. But in this, my father was a praying man. He always used to come visit me and always pray for me and tell me that God had a greater purpose on my life. And in that, there was a lot of things that happened. And this goes back to the Department of Juvenile Justice, to that question. Inside of that system, I felt like no one saw me. No one saw me. They don't. They're like, you're on a machine on this conveyor belt, and they just see you just moving through. They don't have time to see you as a human being.
Or do you know why that is? Lester, I had to pause you right there, but do you know why that is?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, part of it is just it's that money thing, and it's just that conditioning. And this leads me to a whole nother conversation with that. But just to pull back here is that in that juvenile system, no one saw me and respected me. No one asked the question like, what happened in 4 months, man? I saw your mom's die. No one saw that. But in this 3 years, one of the prison chaplains, his name is Robert Scotland. He saw me. He's like, he literally saw me. He was like, man, I see you. And for the first time, I was like, what do you mean? He said, I see that broken boy. I was like, man, what the heck is you talk? He's like, I see you and I respect you. He said, I believe in you. And he said, I want you to read a book, Lester. And at this time, I went to prison reading at a 7th grade level of education, hated reading. And he said, I want you to read a book by James Allen called As a Man Thinketh, So Is He. And I was like, all right, I'll think about it. I grabbed the book and I walked out of his office because I was kind of shook. Like, to be honest, like people in prison don't see you and respect you. Yeah. But he saw me. And he started pouring that seed into me. He called me back to his office a couple of weeks later and said, hey, did you read the book? And I was like, He was like, sit down here and read this book. For an hour, I would sit inside the prison chapel and read a book. And he would start engaging me in a conversation about just life. And that's when I realized that my mind is a garden. And the seeds that I plant in it will determine the growth of it.
Come on.
For years, I was planting all the wrong seeds that led me to that point in my life of incarceration. So when I started reading this book, As a Man Thinketh, So Is He, it started helping me understand my mind, that here I was in prison. I had a choice. I had a choice to die in prison, or I had a choice to live in prison. And I chose to live in prison in spite of the walls. I mean that I had a choice to live and break my emotional prison for the first time ever in my life. And that was what I call the man in the mirror moment, when I looked at myself and I saw this 23-year-old man, but I also saw the 16-year-old broken Lester. And I was like, how do I heal the 16-year-old Lester so that the 23-year-old at that time could be able to walk in his true greatness? And that's when I by the grace of God, I'm telling you, like through prayer, fasting, and things, God like provided me with the information to allow me to begin breaking and chiseling away at my emotional prison, heal the young 16-year-old Lester. So now that I can stand more erect in my position as a man inside of the prison, where the walls no longer affected me because I was free here. And it came as a result of someone saying, I see you and I respect you. And that's a whole nother conversation, because I created a curriculum for juveniles and correctional officers and those who are working in that space around my story, because they didn't see me at 16, 17. That put me on a path. I take full responsibility for the choices. But I said, what if someone would have said what the chaplain said to me when I was 23? That would have changed the trajectory of my life. So I go in now and I train staff on this concept. I see you and I respect you, by just understanding why you need to see me and respect me. That can be able to put you on a path to redemption.
I got two things about that. We need to get you in front of some more people, and we got to get you in front your curriculum into some more hands. So we're going to talk about that if you stay in the green room right after we get off the show. I want to talk about how we do that. But I want to shout out Joe Artist out here. Joe happens to be my cousin. And so I'm super excited that Joe is watching on the show. And Joe, I don't have my glasses. So Shani, read for us.
He says, I suffered depression at the loss of my mom. When she went into hospice, I went to be with her literally every morning after I got off work at 7 a.m. to feed her breakfast. I worked 2 hours overtime one morning and decided to go home, shower, and then go be with her. I showered and don't recall laying across the bed, but I did and fell asleep. I woke up to the facility calling me to say my mom had passed. I required therapy to get rid of the guilt of not going to be by my mom's side.
That's heavy. See, and therapy for me was smoking weed and drinking and shooting guns, not sitting and talking to someone with that. You know what I mean? And
it wasn't accepted. It wasn't accepted as something you do.
Exactly. That's why, like right now, like I am really big on therapy. Like I just hosted a training for young Black boys called Emotional Wellness. What's in your emotional toolbox?
Yeah,
and helping them understand how do you process anger, how do you process sadness? Because these are two emotions. I believe that if you don't get control of, whether you're an adult, particularly young people, you would actually destroy your life before your life even starts. Because anger leads to a lot.
I agree. I want to thank Joe for being transparent and for sharing that, because there are a lot of people out there right now who need someone to talk to about their emotions. And we have been typically taught in our community, man up.
Especially the boys,
especially young African-American males. And so we're talking real talk today, where you need to get someone that you can talk to and help, that can help you. It's not being a wuss. It's not making you less than a man. We have to heal. If we don't heal, our culture cannot go forward. We cannot continue to churn out broken men. Broken boys turn into broken men. And Lester, I'm so grateful that you're transparent. And what's the saying you said?
Transparency transports people. Like I want to be as completely as transparent with your audience, because I believe there's someone that may need to be transported out of their emotional prison. So my transparency is saying I'm willing to let you know what I did and be honest about it, so they can possibly free you of your prison, so you don't have to find yourself living inside of a prison for 20 years to break out of the emotional prison.
Yeah, transparency transports people.
Now, I know we have it on the screen, but for our listeners who are just listening in, maybe they're driving or whatever, tell us how we can get in touch with you.
You can go to my website. It's Path, the number 2 Redemption, all of it's one word.org.
Path2redemption.org. Absolutely. It's a phenomenal time to talk to Lester about this subject, because we definitely got to half the show already, and we haven't taken a break. So why don't we do that? Why don't we take a break? You don't go anywhere, because we're coming right back with Lester Young, the speaker, coach, motivator of Path to Redemption.
I'm holding it all in, okay? Because
Engage, inspire, hire, empower. That's what I help you do as a celebrity, speaker, trainer, and coach. Hi, I'm Barbara H. Smith, known as the Masterful Presenter. I am the one that can help you dig deep inside your passions and deep inside your life to get you to the place you always dreamed.
I had the pleasure of hearing Miss Barbara Holmes Smith speak today, and just from her speaking to me today, I have realized that I need to have personalize my alter ego and be able to put myself out there a lot more.
I help through speaking techniques, teaching you how to use your words and your body language to inspire people to come up higher.
Today's presentation with Ms. Barbara was just outstanding. She has really helped me with her personality, with her being so genuine and passionate about what she believes in and helping to coach, train. Her sense of humor, her energy is just incredible.
How do I do that? By coaching and speaking and training. I help you with whatever it is that you want to do next. What is your next? Are you ready to take your life, your career to the next level? I can get you there. Contact me at www.barbarahsmith.com.
Awesome.
We're back. My sister's out there. She said, amen. Going to therapy was one of the best decisions I've made in my life. Love you to life, sis. She actually just dropped a planner and a journal. Saying. bit.ly/the hardestry of KB. You want to grab that?
You gotta slow that down some, okay?
It's bit.ly, capital T, or backslash, capital T as the hardestry, just like heart and artistry, of KB, capital KB. So go ahead and grab your copies. Lester, Mr. Young, listen, I cannot. I had to get some tissue. I was falling apart there for a second. This is near and dear to my heart. But I know you wrote 2 books.
Yeah.
2 books. Mm-hmm. One, I want to know what they're called and what led you to them.
Well, thanks. My first book is called The 5 Stages of Incarceration. And this was a consistent compilation of journals. I remember the day, it was like 1996. I was inside of a prison. I was fasting and praying, and I was still searching to, like, how do I continue to find my redemption? That's why my organization is called Path to Redemption. I was always searching for my path to redemption. Okay. So in this prison, we was watching this show. Oprah had a show on, and it was about gratitude journaling. And I was struggling still with my mindset. And I said, you know what? I'm going to challenge Miss Winfrey. I'm going to go to the prison canteen and get a bunch of composition notebooks. And I'm going to start writing every day 5 things that I'm grateful for, and just begin to pour out the things that I was internally struggling with. And I just started writing. Every morning I would wake up, I would write 5 things that I'm grateful for and 5 things that I'm grateful for before I go to bed in prison. So I started realizing, as James Allen mentioned, as a man thinking, so is he. Planting that seed changes your day. So I no longer started complaining about everything inside, and I started seeing the blessing in prison. So like I said, it was not about me serving time. How could I use time to serve me to become a better person? Was that like just reinventing the whole wheel, right? So it started working for me. It started helping me. I started pouring out my.
Did it shock you that it started working for you?
Yeah, because I was like,
in your voice right there, it sounded like surprise.
Yeah,
right? I was so surprised, right? You're like, why haven't I been doing this?
I was skeptical about this whole thing about gratitude and writing my thoughts down, and it just started helping me, and it shifted me. I started seeing the blessings instead of the punishment of my incarceration. I moved from a victimization mindset to an ownership mindset, right? I no longer started like seeing myself as a victim. So that book, 5 Stages of Incarceration, was basically my journaling, talking about self-denial. I had to find out what are the areas of denial that I was struggling with, and then understanding the root of my anger, which is the 2nd stage of incarceration. And the 3rd stage was the victimization stage. I needed to understand that I was not the victim. Yes, there was a lot of factors, but I still was not the real victim. And in that, I moved to the last 2, which is called forgiveness. In this, I began writing letters to myself, asking God to forgive me, forgiving myself. I had to forgive the 16-year-old me.
Come on,
not standing up and who lost his voice. I gave my voice to my peers, my homeboys. They spoke for me. I shrank down because I was still dealing with a lot of stuff that I lost my own voice. And I was easy to be led in a lot of things. So in that, I wrote a letter of forgiveness to the 16-year-old me. And I did this consistently. I have over 40 journals that I wrote in prison. And then as I went on, I was like, yo, this is helping me. How could I convert this into a class? And as you mentioned in the bio, this is how I started teaching it inside of the prisons. I started focusing, helping brothers in the prison focus on the areas of self-denial, like abuse, abandonment, addiction, hurt, guilt. All of these various things to help you become a better person. Why are you angry? I'm mad at these CEOs. They ain't feeding me right.
No, bro.
There's a lot of people out there that's not eating. We committed a crime. We're not supposed to get steaks and lobster in prison now. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's be real about this thing. No. So we just started, I started focusing on that and helping them really understand that the anger that they had was really sometimes tied to an abuse or tied to a trauma, was tied to something way bigger than they could see. And then that victimization. So in that forgiveness, I began this, and I'll share this too, to show you the power of God, right? As I was going through this phase of forgiveness and praying, it was 2 things that I felt spiritually was holding me back. One, I had held an unforgiving heart towards my friend who did not tell the truth in my trial. He did not tell the truth in my trial, that I felt like because of his not being honest was led actually to me getting a life sentence, right? He did not tell a lot of things. So I held it in my heart. I would never forget this dude because the circumstances was not correct in how he shared it. So I remember God told me, and a book came through the door under my door in prison, a book, Forgiveness. And I wrote this, it was about how do you process guilt and grow spirituals that you had to forgive. I remember writing my friend a letter that night saying, man, I forgive you. I don't have no ill will, etc. to you, right? That letter went out. Months later, I'm laying in bed struggling with the fact that I killed this guy over drugs, and how am I going to process that? And I remember saying, God, could you please forgive me and set me free? And I felt like I heard his voice. God was like, I've forgiven you. You got to ask the one you have harmed to forgive you. And I remember getting up out of my bed. It's like late at night. I got up and I went to the floor right in the corner of my cell. I can see it to this day, and prostrated, laid my head on the hard concrete floor and begged God. And I kept saying, God, I've forgiven you. You need to take ownership for what you did. And at this time, it's like 96, 97. I never mentioned this man's name that I killed, right? I always say that they said I killed him or whoever. I detached myself from him so that I can cope. But this night I called his name. His name is Gary Goldinger Jr. I say that out of honor and respect for his life. And I remember speaking to the spirit of Gary, and I said, I ask that you forgive me. For the first time in my life, I asked this man's spirit in the spiritual way to forgive me. And I felt like at that moment, that relief was given to me. I was free. And I remember making a promise. I said, Gary, on my soul and your soul, I will honor your life by living the best life that I can through my path to redemption. So that night, all of those things shifted for me between 96 and 97. That put me on the last stage of my book called Transformation. My life was transformed in these various stages of my life. So me forgiving my friend, God allowed me to experience a spiritual thing with my victim where to this day, I honor him. And lastly, the power of this, I used to write letters to his family that I could never send out. I would write it in the journal, setting the intentions. Please understand the power of setting your intentions. I would write a letter to his family when I felt the spiritual need to. I would write a letter. I could never send it off. I got out of prison in 2014. 2014, I was teaching a class back in Hilton Head Island to young people about the choices I made through gun violence. The family, one of the loved ones' family attended this event. And I saw this person in the back, this white woman, she was in the back crying. I was like, man, she's out of place. Like, she don't supposed to be here. This is, it was a setting predominantly black people. And it was just a white lady and a guy. And I'm like, man, who are they? And I started like thinking, but at the end of this, she walked up to me. Well, she asked one of my homeboys, could she speak to me? And he was like, hey, this is the guy's sister that you killed. This is her sister. I was like, oh, that makes sense now. And she walked up to me and she hugged me. And I was like, oh, this is odd. And she said, I forgive you for what you have done. And she said, your presentation today really gave me a reason why, was a reason why I forgive you, because you definitely have changed your life. She said, I've forgiven you for what you have done to our family. And on behalf of my family, I just wanted to let you know we forgive you. We are proud of you. And I was like, what? Just going back again to that intention in that prison cell, working on that forgiveness. Fast forward 2020, went up for a pardon. The family, is notified that I applied for a pardon.
Right.
The son, the brother, the youngest brother called me on Facebook and said, hey, man, my dad just got this letter saying that you're going up for parole. He told me to do everything what I can to help you get a pardon. Right. So I was like, word. He was like, yeah, my dad said he believed that, he has forgiven you, that it was not just your fault. His son played a role in it. And over the years, they come to understand some of the circumstances. But he said, my dad has ever want me to let the parole board, that the pardon board, know that we want you to move forward with your life. And he said, if I need to come up there myself to do it, I will. You know what I'm saying? And he called the morning I'm at the pardon board. He's on the phone talking to these people about me and how he have learned about me helping people through Facebook. And lastly, showing you the power of forgiveness. He was struggling with a drug addiction years later. And he said, man, Lester, I want you to be my coach because you're the only one that I trust that can help me process my addiction. I have the proof.
We do it.
I'm about to turn my camera off so I can get it
that's
all
the
out.
power of God. And that's when you asked about that book. That's just the whole story of that book was based upon my 5 stages of incarceration, which I've been teaching it prior to me released from prison. I still teach it to this day, send it into various prisons across the country.
We applaud you. We applaud you. God is so good.
What can you say but wow and yeah, thank God is so good. Like
yeah. And so at this stage, you should be on national television with this program to help these incarcerated, especially juvenile justice.
Absolutely. That's my passion.
And so I definitely know we're going to connect you with Dr. Tanine. She's going to want to hear from you. She's going to want to hear from you. As a matter of fact, you can also link with her on LinkedIn.
Okay, cool. I'll follow.
I'll get covered for you. Don't worry.
I appreciate you.
Not going to have you covered. What are your thoughts now going forward? Where do you think we're going now? Where is Lester's next? What's Lester's next?
My next right now is continue to just walk in my purpose and continue to. I was just thinking about this morning. We hear this proverb says, "Iron sharpen iron," and I want to continuously be that man that privately I'm working on me, so that when I come into spaces like this, I really sharpen people, right? By adding value. So Lester right now is really focusing on continuously elevating himself, sharpening his own tools, continuously getting the counseling to help process not only all of the different things that I experienced from the loss of my mother to killing someone over a drug dispute, but just the whole 22 years of incarceration. I want to be the best version of myself. And then I want others to be able to see that it's possible. Like you can actually get out of prison and become a business owner, that you could do all of these various things. That when I got out, people say, hey, you're not going to be able to speak. You're not going to be a speaker. You can't do this. And I'm like, man, I don't want to hear none of that y'all are talking about, because y'all don't know me. Y'all don't know the God that I serve. Like I made it through the hellish thing of incarceration, that coming home from prison is just an opportunity for me to become a better person. But that starts with here. I freed myself emotionally and mentally. I invested hours of reading and educating myself and reconstructing my thought process from this victimization mindset to taking ownership and knowing that I'm an optimist. I think big. I'm a big dreamer. I have big dreams, right? Sometimes my wife and family, friends, they got to pull me back because I see the world big. Like everything I go through, I try to give it back. So even after me receiving a pardon, I'm like, I could have easily got off and just did my own thing. But I'm like, yo, a pardon is not that complicated here in South Carolina. It's only $150 for a pardon. People think you got to pay a lawyer $200 to $300 to represent. I'm like, no, let me show you how to get this done. So we raise money and with various churches, we raise money and we pay for people's pardons. So we already got we have been submitted over 150 pardon applications in South Carolina. They've seen a spike since 2020. Since they gave you my pardon, they done seen a spike.
We're gonna get this brother right here. We're gonna get him.
Right. They see Path of Redemption stamped on it because they see a spike. And my thing is transparency, transport. So in my transparency, in my lessons, I want to reach back and pull and say, hey,
that's the only way to do it, bro.
God carries you through these journeys for a reason. And you gotta use your story to continue to empower others. It's not my story. It's about how to
somebody else. Yes, I say it all the time. One of the things you said, and I want to go back to it for a second, Shani. He talks about the same thing that we talk about in speaker training. Yeah. We have a speaker training class every Thursday just for you to come and check it out. If you're interested in coming, it's bit.ly/celebrity speaker, capital C, capital S. bit.ly/celebrity speaker, capital C, capital S. The rest is lowercase. But the first thing we talk about is our mindset. And you said it a couple of times, but I'm going to correct you a little bit. So as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he.
Absolutely.
So what comes into your heart also comes into your mind. The heart and the mind are connected.
Absolutely.
And you have to think better of yourself before you can think better of anything else.
Yeah.
There's a statistic that I share, and I'm going to share it here real quick. We think between 20 and 60,000 thoughts per day. And of those 20 to 60,000 thoughts, 80% of those thoughts are negative. And 90% of them are repetitive. So unless you grab hold of your mind and understand that you have control of your mind, you'll continue to feel like you're a victim. I'm so happy you said that you're no longer a victim.
No, not. It's not. It's definitely not that, you know, and it's again, taking that ownership, changing that mindset. But most importantly too is healing. And also I do the speaking and training, and I tell people, they say, how could I get on the stage and tell a story about my journey? I said, if you have not healed from it, you can't tell it.
No. Now that's a fact.
You gotta like you find a lot of people, their story, they have a powerful story, they have all of the skills and techniques of a speaker, but it lands flat because you're not speaking from here, in my opinion. Like,
and you're not being transparent. You ain't telling it. You're really not telling it.
That's
trying to give the cute version, the pretty.
That's that super sauce. That's your superpower. Your super sauce is when you have went through it and you're able to lay that and be able to articulate that in that capacity. That's when you resonate and people gravitate to you because of authenticity and vulnerability as a speaker, a life coach. And that's the thing that I learned in prison. They were like, how do you get people to come to these classes? When the prison chaplain was like, man, we don't get this many people coming to church. And over a course of time, you got 100 people. Yeah, you got, like, my classes were always filled with men in prison. It was like, how you do it. And it was because I was transparent about brokenness. I was transparent about all of these things. Like, I just had to be honest. And that has made me the man that I am. And as a speaker, I'm able to do this in the way that I do it because of me healing from my past pain and using my pain and to turn into a purpose.
Wow, Shani, you sizzling over there. I see the smokes coming out your brains right over there.
I'm trying to hold back the tears because this has just been so life-changing. My final question to you would be, what message do you have for the youth in the streets right now, engaging in activities that are leading them to an early death?
That's a rough
incarceration. What would you say?
My thing would be is not what I really would say, is how I would actually demonstrate to them and help them understand that they have to break out of that emotional prison. Like, you think about a lot of our young people, they have seen their best friend get killed. And they just learned how to pour libation to honor them. They or wear a t-shirt. We never talk to them about how to heal emotionally. So my thing would be not only just to the youth, but to the adults in the community, is that we have to normalize therapy and counseling for our young people.
Yes.
Because it's not their fault. Like you said, it's hard for a 14-year-old kid to be able to process the death of his best friend who got shot for nothing, for just wearing a pair of shoes. Or in the community where they stay, they constantly hearing gunshots. It only continue to traumatize them even more. And now they say, I'd rather get caught with a gun than to not get caught with a gun. So now you have this perpetual gun violence taking place as a person who may just want to protect themselves, and we're not teaching them that. So I think my thing would be is let's heal. Let's help our young people heal, because if they don't heal right now, we're going to continue creating a society that is going to lead to larger numbers of people in prison and the cemetery, and mothers going to be crying on the loss of their young person because they never even reached 21. And it's because we have not normalized counseling, therapy for trauma that are in these urban communities where they see violence on a daily basis. They hear it, they see it, and we have to find
PTSD. They are on a battlefield in many communities.
Literally.
Yeah. And the trauma that they're experiencing, they're suppressing. They don't even know they've been traumatized because it's so normal.
Yeah.
And the other thing that we got to start censoring, and I know I'm going to hurt somebody's feelings and step on somebody's. Say it. Censoring some of these games that they're playing.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about shoot somebody down.
I call it the grooming processes. I call it like music, movies, games. It grooms you to become desensitized. And that you don't feel it. So if I'm all day, I'm just killing someone. Now you even hear it in the language and in the music that it started from a video game called Ops, right? Black Ops. Now they're referring to individuals in their community as ops. It's like they take a theory, a terminology from a video game, and now they have incorporated music and it turned it into real life. So now the music, video games, movies, music, all of that now normalize killing, and they term ops. They're not ops. And that's another way of scripting that they're human beings. If we see them as human beings, as mothers and fathers, you're less likely to kill. So we have to like erase the human side and make them something other than, so that makes it easier to kill. And that's from the video games. And that's an unfortunate thing. And that's a lot of work. But it's called that grooming process. It grooms them for killing, incarceration, and unfortunately early death.
What age do you like to get a hold of the youth? Do you try to start, elementary age?
13 is that age, because that's when I think that I can connect a little better. It's hard to like connect with 10, 11. I like in my class Saturday, I had this 11-year-old black boy, and I'm like, and he was telling me about his anger. I'm like, dang, you 11 years old and you dealing with anger, turning things over. And I was like, wow, we have to maybe step back a little further down, because they're now dealing with anger and going back again. It's from the environments that they're raised in. They see anger expressed in this particular way. That's what they learn, how anger should be processed. So yeah, I'm looking at that number differently now, just from Saturday with the show.
Yeah, with the 6-year-old in my community that shot his teacher.
Yeah, I saw that.
We ain't going there. We're not going there right now. We that's a whole other show. I'm just saying. We want to talk to you. We want to thank you so much, Lester, for being here. We hope you've enjoyed your time with us. We normally do a 30 to 45 minute show, and we got license from Mark Lee to do an hour show today because we knew you were going to be jam-packed with information, intriguing information for our audience. How do we get a hold of you again? I know it's streaming across the bottom.
I would just like reach out to me for speaking and training opportunities. I also do, like, for those who are like returning home from prison, I do life coaching. I do group coaching virtually for those men and women who are coming home and want to just like learn some techniques on how to survive after prison. You know what I'm saying? So you can go to path2redemption.org and you could connect with me there, and you will see some of the programs that we do here in South Carolina. But for the training, I do it nationally because we can do it through the virtual platform.
Awesome. Now, how about your books? Can we get your books on the website as well?
Yes, you can go to the books, path2redemption.org. You can go to the section with the books. You can see the 5 stages of incarceration, the 5 stages of growth, and that is how I transform my life while serving life. And it comes from healing from my past pain, finding my voice, mindset, purpose, and gift. These are things that transform my life. And I believe that anybody who's looking to transform their lives, you have to heal and you have to find your voice, not the voice of your community, your peers, but find your voice and change that mind. And then most importantly, tap in and find your purpose. So people say, how do I find a purpose? Is the pain that you survived, the thing that came into your life to kill you survived it, and you can teach somebody that, how they survive, how you survive, You
get your purpose through pain. It's just as simple as that. Shani, what else you got?
Okay. It's funny that you talk about that. We talk about that. It's obviously true, correct?
Yeah.
I just recently became a #1 Amazon best-selling international author by telling my story of triumph as well. Nice. So I had no idea while I was writing it even what was going to happen, And I mean, I'm talking about ugly cry, not what just happened today on the show, the cute thing. Yeah. Ugly cry, getting that out. And then I thought about all the shame, of how everyone was going to look at my story. Come to find out, they're inspired. Why? Because I was transparent. So I'm helping somebody else transport. So
transport. So your transparency and shedding all of that, you transported people and they saw the value in your story because of your transparency.
And I have no more stories. As bad as I want to be in volume 2 of the Empowering You series, I cannot. But we are still accepting new authors who want to become instant international authors. Contact me at support@barbarahsmith.com. We'll get to talking to you. It's called Let Go of the Past and Step into Your Greatness.
Oh, yeah.
Because it is that when you free yourself from that, you can actually, here's the proof right here. Here's the proof right here.
Positive sitting before us right now.
Credible messenger.
We got a class tonight, Shani, right?
We got a class tonight. I'm going to let you take that away. I'm just in touch.
I want to show you how to get on stages and pages. There are strategies for getting on other people's stages and pages, and with the possibility of coming with me as a speaker to Kenya, Africa. Come tonight, bit.ly/celebrity speaker. The C and the S are capitalized. bit.ly/celebrity speaker. We want you to know that we are still #1 Amazon bestselling authors, and you can get the book on Amazon if you choose. If you are interested in, I just got a report from Dr. Ward, our project manager for the new book. We have 1 spot left as an author. If you have been dying to write a book, don't know how to write a book, and want to become an instant international author, reach out to Shani Smith at support@barbarahsmith.com. Don't forget the H, because you know what time it is. It's time for you to step into your greatness, because the world is waiting for you. That's our show. Thank you so much, Lester. Hang out with us tonight after the show.
Thank you.
Wow.
I am a child of the Most High God. He has gifted me in ways that I could not even imagine and didn't know. There was a time when I didn't know who I was. I listened to other people tell me who I should be, what I should do. I listened to people telling me that I should be a boutique owner, that I should be a construction manager, that I should be a laborer. Have you ever felt like you should do something else, be something else, go somewhere else, be wherever you wanted to be, and you felt like you were in a box? Anybody in the room? And you couldn't get out? Anybody in the room? And you kept trying to go and go and you couldn't get out? Anybody in the room? But let me tell you, you need to rock the box. Rock the box. I am engaging, inspiring, and empowering. I would give you everything I know. Just by touching you, if I could, by osmosis, give you every single thing I've learned, I've gone through, I know I would. We know that's not possible, but as it is possible, I love to share information with people. Some of you out there, people have told you that you can't be, you can't have, you can't do. But I will tell you, like Kingston said, you can, you must, and you will. If it's to be, it's going to be me. You got to say it. If it's to be, it's going to be. If it's to be, it's going to be. If it's to be, it's going to be.
Barbara is because she believed what her mama said about her and not what other people told her.
Every day you wake up, when you're in a situation, it's your choice whether it's an advantage or the disadvantage.
She gained her confidence and her life, and now she is a testimony.
If I can help you elevate yourself, then I feel like I'm elevating my own self as well. What you know and I know together can change the world.